Alright guys, this is a video on a 2013 Honda Odyssey. It's my sister's. Battery stopped charging, vehicle died on the side of the road. Tested the alternator, the fuse, made sure the fuse was okay, tested the battery, it's the alternator. So this is going to be a video on replacing the alternator. We'll go into what tools you're going to need and just the procedure that I'm going to do. May not be exactly how some of the other videos on the internet do it. It'll be real similar though. And coincidentally, this will also be really similar to the Honda Pilot video that precedes this one. So if you happen to watch the Honda Pilot video, very similar to the Honda Odyssey. Alright guys, these are the tools I used. Flathead screwdriver to remove clips, 10mm for all the small bolts, 14 for the tensioner, an extension and an extendable wrench in my case, just for the work. The pliers are to move the bushing over. Once you get the alternator out, you need to move it over to make room for the lower bolt. 14mm for the lower bolt, 12mm for the upper bolts on the alternator, 10mm for some of the small hardware, 6mm Allen for the Allen bolt that's part of the bracket for the upper alternator, magnet for when you drop stuff down inside the motor, bungee cords to pull the AC lines and the power steering lines out of the way, whatever direction you want to pull them. Alright, first thing we're going to do is take the flathead screwdriver and pop these pins out. They come out pretty easy. I'd get yourself a box or something to throw your stuff in here. This just pulls out, pops off right here. And then we're going to disconnect the negative battery terminal. It's going to require your 10mm. And we'll set that down in here where it can't contact anything. Next, we are going to remove the power steering bracket, which is also a 10mm. Want to hit that. On this car, the plastic clip is already missing. We'll replace that. I have a kit that has them. Normally there's a plastic clip here, just like the kit, or just like the ones that go over there in the airbox. So while we're at it, we're going to get that 10mm down there. Okay, we're going to remove this bracket next. Also a 10mm. And some of this stuff, if you've got power tools, by all means use them. I don't have any out. Well, I kind of do and kind of don't. Actually, we'll just leave the bolt out. Alright, you can see I've got this bungee across to the battery. Hold down, and it just was a metal part that I could get this bungee to, and it just pulls all that out of the way. So let's see if we can not get in the way of the light. Okay, right there is a 10mm. We're going to remove that. Alright, what a pain in the butt it was to get that on there. So I'm going to block you guys for just a second. Now that's loose. We're going to take that bolt loose and get that out of there. I'm going to use a 10mm to get this loose. I just happen to have a deep socket 10 out that would probably work good for getting this out. If you haven't pinned your AC hose over, in fact, I'm going to let that loose for just a second. It's much easier to get to this. Bring the exposure up a teeny bit. And you just want to be careful and not drop these down in the car. That'd be catastrophic. Okay. And then we're going to get the alternator loose. And that's going to involve a 12mm, I believe, and unplugging something. We'll get to that next here. Alright guys, this is my setup. I've got a 6-point right there with a wobbly and a long 12-inch extension. If you're going straight down on the bolt's actually aimed back in here and you can't get on it very well from here, so that's why I've got the wobbly. It's just to get it to break loose. Voila. And then we'll get a magnet to get that out of there. And let's see here. This down here is hard to get to. I got big arms and I can't get to it here. It's going to be very hard to see, but there is right there where those little ridges are. You press that in. Right there where the screwdriver's at. I'm not going to show you because my hand has to come in from the same angle as the screwdriver. My arm takes up the whole space. But you press that in and wiggle and it's going to come out. So we're going to do that now. There's another wire down there. You can't see it from here, but basically it goes down to some other connector down there. And I would leave that plugged in. You're just going to shove all this out of the way when you're getting the alternator out. So wouldn't mess with that. It looks like it can be unplugged fairly easily, but it's way down there, so I'm not going to mess with it. Alright, I pulled the washer bottle off at the metal hose. That sucker was in the road, so that got booted. So hopefully that makes getting around in there easier. Alright, I don't have a long 14, not long enough to really push well on the tensioner, so I'm going to do the old stack a wrench and make it longer. So I'll get this situated. So old stack a wrench action. We're going to loosen that up. Take that off. Ow. Oh, what a disaster. How'd you like all that? Probably didn't catch any of it. Gosh, what a disaster. So the tensioner comes forward a long ways when it's loosened up, and I just took the belt off of the alternator when it was pushed forward. I had to push it forward a long ways, and you know, just kind of let crap go flying off everywhere. That's what you should do too. So for reference, this does not work, and this does not work because it has that little head on the back. Might have worked without that, but I don't have a long socket, so neither of those work. Don't try them. Okay, it's 12 millimeter, the upper bolt to the alternator, 14 millimeter for the lower bolt. Alright guys, somehow I didn't record myself breaking the bolt loose there, but that's it. It's a 14, and obviously it's broke loose, but you're gonna get on it and break that lower bolt loose. Alright, 6 millimeter Allen wrench. And we should be able to take the bracket off and the upper radiator bolt at this time. So we'll take that Allen out first. That's your the lower of the two upper bolts, or you could call it the forward of the two. And the upper bolt retains the bracket to the head. Okay, I thought this was some magic crap or something. The alternator, the upper mount has to come out first, has to go past the head and come out. And then you can see it starts to rotate forward. This is the only way to get it out. And you'll end up with the alternator with that lug facing out this direction. And you can basically just barely force it past. The air conditioning line right there, the hard line. So now it's on this side of the air conditioning line. And now you can see the power steering's in the road, but we're going to get that up out of the way. So we're going to pull the power steering up out of the road, and we're going to have access to our alternator. And it's heavy, and I'm not going to show you lifting it out. You can see there's a nice big space here. Alright, I was not able to get done last night. We're going to do the install this morning. One of the things on the new alternator, the main nut, has a washer that's not attached. It's a spinning washer. This is a shouldered nut. I would reuse the shouldered nut. I would not use that janky spinning washer thing. It's just a much cheaper nut. And then the other thing is, do yourself a favor when you're doing this job and get a long 14, meaning that it fits the tensioning bolt, and it's got to be long, really long, because I had a really hard time detensioning the belt because I didn't have a long 14. So what I would do, open end wrench isn't going to be long enough unless you've got a really long one. I would pre-shop a breaker bar or some kind of 14 millimeter that's a really long 14 millimeter so you can detension the belt easily. Alright, we're going to get this radiator in. So we're gonna face the main bolt out like we did before. So when we put the new one in, hopefully you can see it, that this is facing out, and we're gonna try to get it in the way we got it out before. Oh, that went in so much easier. That's the way to do it, guys, for sure. Yeah, you guys can see it. So it just went in a way easier that direction. The way it's sitting right now, it passes through this area right here where my middle finger is, and just goes in a lot easier. So that is the way. All right, we're going to attempt to squeeze the alternator bushing back. Don't know how this is going to go. Don't have a lot of good lighting here. All right, guys, you can see I did move this bushing a tiny bit, like an eighth. Basically, you have to get one jaw on this side and then tilt it far enough forward to get the other jaw on the actual bushing. You can't just grab a hold of it, because both jaws will hit the bushing and won't do anything. So you got to press on this side of this boss and then squeeze and get that bushing to move over a little bit. That should be enough to get the alternator in, though. So let's see if we can show that on camera. Where's that lower mount at? And it went right in. I believe I heard somewhere else that the lower bolt is 33 foot-pounds. I'll be torquing it to good enough spec. Good and tight, maybe. And then we're going to get the upper one in. Got the upper bolt sitting here. All right, we've got the Honda bracket, which I believe goes on the inside. Is that right? No, it goes on the outside, and then it faces like this. So, and it's down in the bottom of the car now. All right, guys, I would get these started ahead of time. The Allen bolt that you can see in frame and the other bolt right there, I'd get them started and get them threaded in as far as you can by hand. I would also get the lower bolt in by hand. All right, I got the lower bolt snug, got the upper bolt snug. I've heard these are 16 foot-pounds, so I'm not going to go super tight. Because you could massively over tighten them. This is 33. Again, I've heard that. I can't verify it. This one will get a little bit more beef. And of course, there's limited space in here. Let me see if I can get it a little more. I'm sure that's every bit of 33. So now we're just going to make our electrical connections. We'll put obviously the clip in first. I'm going to take the bungee off that air conditioning part. there. We need to hook up those two connections down there. Let's see if I can get it in frame right down there. We'll do that one first, and then this one on this lug. Alright guys, you can see my flex socket in the top part of the frame here. And I've got that hand tight, and we're going to snug that up. I don't know what the torque setting for this is, but we're not going to go very hard on it. Alright, that's tight. We'll slip this boot back over it. The boot on the other connector was kind of hard to get on, so you'll want to make sure it didn't want to go over the corner. Took me a couple tries. It was catching. This one appears to be catching as well. There's an open corner on the plastic that they don't want to go around. Come on. Boy, that was harder than it needed to be. Alright, then we're going to put this electrical connector back on, get that lined up, which is right underneath the hose there. So we'll get that back on. Okay, I've just got a 12 on the end of a flexible joint connector here, and this is already snugged up, so we're just going to get it tight, and that's good. It's just plastic. Okay guys, we're going to attempt to capture this. Make sure your belt's on your upper and lower components. I'm going to get this pre-positioned here. It keeps wanting to come off the power steering pump. So we're going to get this pre-positioned. Make sure that it's on the bolt. This thing keeps slipping off. Oh, there we go. I don't know how well I got that on. Why is that doing that? Oh, I'm unscrewed. Okay, yeah, that the small AC line is just a massive pain in the ass. So it's way over on the tensioner, so I'm going to adjust that. It's on the power steering pump correctly. There we go. It's on the alternator correctly. Of course, you guys can't see that because the reservoir's in the road. So you can see that it's on the alternator. You can actually see up here where my fingers are that it's on the power steering pulley correctly. And it's on the AC compressor correctly on the bottom. So there's just no good way to do that. The guy I watched had a longer I'm sweating like a pig. The guy I watched had a longer open-end wrench. Like I said, the guy that I was watching had a long open-end ratchet style wrench, and I think the head might have even been a swivel, I'm not sure. But you just kind of muscle it and get it done. There's no pleasant way of doing it. The AC lines are right in the damn road. Of course, I could go on a rant about Honda engineers or any engineer. But yeah, so it's now electrically hooked up. The belt's tensioned. All the bolts are tight. I've still got to get the power steering bracket on, and the bracket for the AC, and the bracket for the overflow bottle. And I got to put the overflow bottle back on. I'm going to mount that bracket right there back on. That's for the overflow bottle. And then we're going to put that hose back on that bottle. All right, so we're going to put this back on. I would do the passenger side bolt first. It's just harder to get to, and it's nice to be able to move it around if you need to get it in there. So, and then you could do the driver's one afterwards. You can't really get you might be able to get a wobbly socket, real short-headed wobbly socket on there. I couldn't get anything on it, so the prescription for me is hand tight, and then use the old open-end wrench. Alrighty, we're real close here. These are also 10 millimeters. All the small bolts are 10 millimeters, so that should be pretty easy to remember. Flip it around. It's a 6-point box in, so it's good and bad. Don't strip bolts out, but you got to turn it a lot more. All right, so that bracket's in. Now we're going to put the overflow bottle down in here, and we're going to clip it onto, let's see, the overflow bottle is going to go on that side of the smaller hose, which I have the overflow hose on the wrong side. So I get to take that back off. Come on. Oh, it came off of here. So this goes on the other side of the small hose, the small power steering hose. Alright. Feed that bad boy down in there. Yeah. Oh. Have to kink the hose. Should have put that on before, or down in there. So if you're doing this, put the bottle in place before you bolt the, well, or you could just slip that off instead of being difficult. Wow, that was totally unnecessary, guys. All right, last thing to do is to clip the overflow bottle back into its plastic brackets. And both of those clips go on the metal portion. I think she's, oh, we got to put that cap on. And once you get the power steering reservoir mounted and all the lines clipped in, don't forget to install the bracket right here for your AC line. I've bent that so much or moved it around that it doesn't want to line up, so we'll get that lined up real quick. Alright, you can see that that's now connected and clipped in. You can kind of see right here where that got some rash on it just from moving around next to the motor. I couldn't help it, it kind of rubbed on all this crap in here. So AC lines were definitely problematic as far as getting them in and out of the road and all that good stuff, but that's hooked up and we'll move on. Last but not least, we're going to put the positive terminal back on the battery. Now I had an issue with some acorns, so I had to put this in the intake, so I just didn't want anything getting in there. Make sure that's good and tight. Pull this out. Gonna put our intake back on. And put our clips in. It's always a good idea to make sure that your parts box is empty. Alright guys, in conclusion, it wasn't too bad. It was tight, but it wasn't too bad. Make sure that you've charged your battery. Don't put a new alternator in with a dead battery. You can ruin the new alternator. So I topped this battery off with a trickle charger, you know, a couple days before I started this. Check all your fluids. I did lose a tiny bit of power steering fluid from moving it around, flipping it over. Same thing with the washer bottle. I lost a little fluid out of that taking it off. But top those up. Make sure you don't have any extra parts laying around or things unclipped. And you know, as always, I hope this helps somebody. Talk to you guys later.